You shaped it in your mind. Total performance. Now the all-new Toyota Supra brings it alive. Super power, created by a 3-liter 24-valve, 200-horsepower engine. Super suspension, racing type, double wishbone, fully independent. Super cockpit, where you perform. The new Toyota Supra. Performance without compromise. Now the Supra dynasty begins. Who could ask for anything more?
The first step to successfully completing any task is planning. Plan, plan, and plan. The first step to building a wiring harness will be to summarize all devices on your motor and in the system that are needed to support operation of the engine. This includes both sensors in and out of your motor, ignition components, and any add-on sensors. For example, adding fuel pressure or coolant pressure sensors. Now is the time to plan ahead and include any items on your wish list for future expansion. Do you want a boost controller? Do you want to add flex fuel sensor? Do you want to add a few spare sensor wires for future expansion? It really pays to prepare now, as it will save you large amounts of work in the future. I can share an example from my personal experience. I was repeatedly told to go cable throttle. Now, a year later, after fighting cold starts and controlling idle speed while running AC and adding an IAC valve, and after not being happy with the results, I'm having to add wiring to my harness to allow for drive-by-wire. Again, planning ahead is key. In my build, I decided to install a 2JZGTE VVTi with an EMU Black engine management system. I wanted all of the factory gauges to work as originally intended, and I wanted to add additional sensors to show vital engine measurements. For ultimate reliability, it is best to not share sensors with gauges and the ECU. The way I looked at it is, yes, it stinks to have to run multiple and redundant sensors and additional lines of wire, but we are only talking 2 sensors in this case, the oil pressure sensor and the coolant temperature sensor. Having redundancy of these 2 sensors, to me, was reassuring and worth both the effort and the cost. The first order of planning will be to create a spreadsheet. In this example, I set up a table for each connector for the EMU Black. I added columns for pin numbers, description, and notes. Later on, I added colors to help organize my wiring groups. To keep things simple, I utilized most of the default inputs and outputs of the engine management system. I determined which sensors needed 5 volts, 12 volts, and/or ground, and added up how many feeds of each would be required. With devices requiring 5 volts, I split them up between the 2 independent 5-volt supplies of the EMU. With ignition coils and injectors, I ran dedicated 12-volt lines to each separately fused. I wanted to make any future troubleshooting very easy. Say, for example, the fuel injector fuse opens. I would know something in that circuit, and only in that circuit, is drawing too much current. In cases where circuits are shared, for example, sensors requiring 5 volts, I balance the total current draw in each circuit evenly. Now that we know what wires we need to support our build, we have to determine the lengths of every wire and how each wire is distributed and the harness. So taking a thick extension cord that I had that's about the thickness of what this harness will be completed, I routed this harness in the car and labeled every single run and where every branch would go, and then the length of every branch. So I've got this thick extension cord just kind of running through the path that I'd like to take for most of the wiring, and right now I'm just kind of tagging where I'm going to break off, wire to go to various things. So this is going to go to AC compressor and power steering. This is the AC compressor. Okay, so that's going to be about that long. AC clutch, I should say, 9 inches. Okay, so AC clutch, 9 inches, and power steering. I don't know if I'm ever going to use it, but the power steering solenoid is 2-wire. Might help for me to figure out. Knock, it's 2 wires. Well, it's going to be shielded too. Okay. Okay. Oh, that stinks. Oh. Okay. All right, so then I've got a bunch of wires that are going to be going to the front up here. And I think I'm just going to kind of run them down through here. Multiple wires need to branch out to go to a front oil filter location where we have 2 pressure sensors. One for the gauge in the dash and the other for EMU Black engine protection. Okay, so that's going to go like this. Okay, so that's pretty much the full length of this wire. It's going to be 50 inches. 50 inches, so there's a lot here. There's going to be 1 wire, oil, pressure for ECU, 1 wire, oil, gauge. And these are going to be, I forget how long I said, 50 inches? Yeah, 50 inches. Yeah, about 50 inches. But I want to also add, these are both 50 inches. But then we're also possibly going to add, so that's for pressure, so we might want to add a 1/8 inch oil temp. It's going to be 50 inch. Okay. And the oil temperature, pretty sure we have a generic, I've got this generic, it's actually a coolant temp sensor, but that should work. So we can put that in. It's a 1/8 inch NPT. That'll fit perfect in there. So that's awesome. It's this guy right here. Just pretty basic, very simple. Again, 1/8 inch NPT fitting. All right. So again, we're gonna have that coming off right about where this other one is. Okay, I know it's real sloppy, but it is gonna help. I think it is gonna help me clean up and kind of get a good idea of what I need and where I need it. So the next question is, what all do we want? Where do we want to come up from below and go to? I think it'd make more sense to break it off. I think it'd make more sense to break this off here. Just kind of, yeah, that'll be fine. All right, some more measuring. So we're gonna come off. I'm actually gonna send the wire up through here, and we're gonna connect the fuel injectors and the gosh, if I can spit it out. We're going to connect the cam position sensor. It's gonna be cylinder 6. Okay, so this is going to be, for yeah, so those three can be pretty much the same length. It's going to be 17 inches. All right, this is going to be involved. So I got 2-wire injector 6, injector 5. We got 3-wire crank position, CPS, crank position sensor. Wire I2 12 inch and okay, so we're getting there. We're not seeing it, but we're getting there. So I've got all my injectors and the crank position sensor coming up right here. I'll come up here and kind of branch out. I've got notes on there with, you know, if they can run together for how long when I'm jacketing. I added a wish to the list to add a 2-wire for fuel pressure connection. I'm not sure where I'll connect it, but if I could have it there, that would be great. And maybe I can even, you know, run it to this guy here, because I might hook up a fuel pressure sensor right here off that input if possible. I don't see any cleaner way to do it at this time. So, okay. So that's that. Now it's starting to get a little, I want to stay pretty tight. So I'm probably going to, well, I think it'll be okay. I think it's actually holding up pretty well. So I think, okay, I forgot one thing, by the way. I'm sure we're going to want to connect to the, oh yeah, and then there's even more stuff. So, okay, so inches. So 2-wire VVTi, How long do I say? I'll do 12-inch. Okay, and then on top of that, I'm going to have, on top of that, we're going to have, where is it? So we're going to have the 2-wire AIT. Oops. I think I'm going to probably put that somewhere in this vicinity, but I kind of want to leave it long. If I did 12-inch, we'll do 15-inch. Okay, and then there's one more. We got to go into the throttle position sensor. So that's TPS. And I think TPS is going to be like right here. So 12-inch will probably be plenty. All right, so that was good to catch that, because that would have been bad. That's a lot of really important wiring. I'm assuming the throttle position sensor is 4-wire. Not positive. Let me check out here. Yep, it's 4-wire. Alright, so we're good so far. Now, get this guy back up here. So, right, I'll get this all laid out. So we basically are going to have, let's see. We're going to have, coil 1. Coil 2, coil 3, coil 4, coil 5, coil 6. These are all going to be 3-wire. Okay, so now we're going to start playing around with the lengths. 21 inches. And those two are together for, let's say, 16 inches. We're getting there, folks. We're getting there. This is painstaking. This is, I think, probably the best way that I can imagine doing it. Now, I'm sure I'll run into some kind of issue. I mean, that sounds like I'm negative thinking, but I mean, there's a lot of stuff to undertake, right? So. All right, so that's not too pretty. I know, I understand, but it's okay. Yeah. All right. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere. Now, I'm gonna remember that I want to do the boost controller over here somewhere. I'm going to have a coolant temperature sensor right here. Okay. That's going to be way too long, but 5.5. Cool. 2-wire. That's for ECU. 2-wire boost control. Okay, how long did I say? Something coming out here. 6 inches. Inches. About 11 inches. All right, so now the next question is, what do I want to do with this Bosch wideband sensor? All right. So I got 2 wire for coolant. Heater. And I think, the factory just had it kind of stub off from right here. I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to kind of do that, and then also do the same thing for the wideband sensor. So I'll just say 8 inches. So it's going to be 2 wires for the coolant actuator to open the coolant, for heat, and we're going to do the 4 wire. 1, 2, that's 4 wire. 3, 4, 5 wire. 5 wire. Okay, I'll do that guy right there. I've been kind of wondering what I'm going to do there for that. The way I'm thinking is, it's a high current device. Why do I want to run that all the way around, and over to here, and have more wiring, potentially interfering with the crank sensors or the valve position, cam position sensors, all the above. So basically, I think that's going to be the best approach. It's just tying those out from here, and first going to go on the back side. Okay, so that's that. Now I have to add. I ran my alternator wire, so I should be okay. I'm pretty sure there was a wire that came off from the fuse box over there that basically is an exciter wire for the 7M alternator, as well as the charge light for the dash, and I think a ground. Any which way, there's 3 wires, and it's going over to the fuse box. So I just have to connect them. I ran that with the positive battery wire that goes to the primary wire that goes to the alternator. So I've got the alternator wired in. I added this plug and these wires, and I'm basically going down around here, underneath the radiator support, up and around here, and here's where the factory mess is beginning. And I'm just kind of going through all this stuff just to let you know, this is what fed the car originally, this little itty bitty wimpy wire. And just for size comparison, I'm going to go to this size wire. So there should be no dim dash gauges. A few wires, so that's good. So really, I'm just at the point now where I'm just got to figure out where I'm going to tie in the crank position sensor. I don't know what the hell happened here, but so it's got to be a crank position. Gonna be 3 wire. There's a ground shield, and I want to go probably 2 inches. I mean. 5 inches. Why not? I'm gonna take the boost controller off. I'll put it down here. I'll do the boost. It's 2-wire. Boost controller is going to be I'd say 5 inches as well. Okay, at long last, we're getting ready to build the harness. And just want to kind of go over everything that I have in my kit. All this stuff has been ordered from various places. Obviously, we're starting with the EMU Black. We have ourselves a little Bluetooth adapter we're going to wire in. We have some various TXL wire on varying gauges. I have from 10 gauge, 14 gauge, 12 gauge, all the way to 24 gauge, I believe. We have the flying lead kit from EMU. Yeah, I'm sorry, ECU Master, sorry. And essentially, this should have pretty much everything we need, with a few accessories, you know, that we're going to have to add on. Some additional wiring here for some of the factory body wiring. Again, this is TXL wire, so it's high temperature. These are the crank position sensor, as well as cam position sensor and knock sensors. There's basically essentially 4 braided shielded wires that came in the flying lead kit. I just started to prepare them for our harness. Again, just some extra additional wire. This is not TXL, but this is for accessories I'm going to wire. These are some ring terminals for some thicker gauge wiring for essentially the alternator that's already being used, and some additional accessory wiring. I'm going to use this fire sleeve for the coils, since the wiring at this area gets a lot of heat. And then we just have a few of my preferred hand tools. These aren't for everybody, but I've been using these for almost, a little over 30 years now, so some of these anyway, some of them not, but anyways, I'm very familiar with them. They work good for me. Some people prefer automatic wire strippers. I prefer those. We have ourselves an amp terminal crimper, which again, I know they make much better, but this is pretty decent. I'm used to using these, and that's what I'm going to use. We have our injector, our fuel injector connectors, shipped from Evolved Tuning. And we have our factory Toyota connectors for the 2JZ, and that's provided by KSV Looms. And we have some additional looming, heat protectant, fiberglass sleeving that I'm going to use, heat gun, heat shrink, and of course various connectors that I'm going to use. And what else? This is essentially again some thick extension cord wiring that I've left over, and I use this to kind of get my lengths for the wiring harness. And I've got an extra box of really high-grade loom for the wiring harness, and the good old factory Supra wiring diagram that comes in real handy. And again, some additional loom, some high temperature loom in here. So we should be all set to go. And again, some extra Toyota plugs. You need these for the valve, for the let's see, for the oh gosh, the heater core, you know, actuation valve, and you also need this on the reverse plug on the R154. So you'll need 2 of those. I know offhand. Oh, I forgot. I also have a handy dandy wire label as well. That's going to come in handy. All right, here I use some Velcro bands to kind of help hold the wire in place. And right now I'm just kind of testing wire lengths on the flying lead kit just to make sure all the wiring is going to be long enough. Again, Velcro is very handy in these steps because you can reuse the Velcro over and over. And as you add layers of wire, you can basically very easily remove the Velcro, add the Velcro, and you know, just continue to add wires. All right, so while making our harness, I started to install the knock sensor one. Of course, we have 4 of these similar wires that are shielded that came in the kit, the flying lead kit, and essentially it's not going to be long enough. Kind of followed through here, and this is where the knock 2 sensor is going to be. I believe the knock 1 sensor is over here, and as you can tell, let's see, so knock 2, and I said 11.5 inches from this point, and that might actually be long enough now that I look at it. But this other one is definitely not going to be long enough. There's just not enough length in these leads, unfortunately, for some of the harness in here. So luckily I ordered, before I ordered the flying lead kit, I was going to individually order the wire. And luckily I have a 100 feet of this, it's 18 gauge, so it's a little thicker than what is needed, but you know, I think it'll be fine. But essentially it's automotive grade wire, and it is shielded. So we're going to work on getting the knock sensors done, and the crank sensor, and the cam sensor wiring done, and I'm going to work on a few of these other wires as well. So here, right now we're terminating the 4 shielded wires that go to the knock sensor, crank position sensor, and cam sync. So essentially this is the way that I've done it. I'm using these solder and seal connectors. We're using the blue on this one. And essentially I just have a spare piece of ground wire, and I like to twist it up about 1/4 of an inch or so, maybe 1/8 of an inch roughly, from the end of the wire. I just start twisting it on with the shield and cut it flush, pulling the shielded wire off. And now I'm gonna, it gets a little tight in here, but essentially we're gonna try to get this solder ring over this. And I usually stop it right about, so the blue is actually on the end of the wire, and actually gonna pull my labels off. They discolor with the heat. You can see on this one it's a little discolored from the heat. It must be thermal print label maker. So I'm gonna pull this label off, try to reuse it if we can. Here momentarily. And I'm gonna put that on here for later. Okay, so essentially, again, we have the blue on the end of the wire. We have the solder ring nicely centered with the black wire that's going to the the shield drain. And just going to kind of twist it and turn it, pulling the wires straight, both ends, and keeping an eye on it, making sure. Now you can kind of see this solder kind of wick on there. I like to keep it straight until it cools, but you can see how the solder wicks right up into the wire. And so that's kind of what we're looking for. So as you can see, we've got 4 total, and we're going to terminate this to the ECU on the sensor ground, and hopefully we'll keep it pretty straight, pretty tidy. I'm going to pull all the grounds together and terminate it probably to one terminal, and go to the ECU. Sorry for the crazy wind chime noises in the back. It's almost as if it's currently raining out, and I figured might as well take advantage of this nice cool day, which we don't get very often in the summer months, and try to lay out this harness and determine you know, the overall wire lengths, and try to consider whether or not we're going to do some cross wrapping, and you know, just trying to get an overall profile of how the wire is going to lay. So I will put you in time lapse, and we'll you know, show you the process. All right, so decided that it's easier to hang it hang the harness and just kind of do a few wires at a time. You know, wrap a few wires at a time. And so it's very, very tedious, as you can see, but it's turning out pretty nicely. You can see that I'm using the, let's see, the Kapton tape. And I'm using Velcro in between to, you know, just kind of temporarily hold it instead of using a bunch of zip ties. It's working out okay so far. As I get into the smaller wires, it might not, but so far it looks good. And I've just got the core 4 shielded wires taped together. That's basically what the core of this is. So that's it. So I'm just going to keep going and keep pressing on. Just want to give you an update.